Starting off with the mystery book, I read That's Not My Name. A teen wakes up on the side of a dirt road with no memory of who she is or how she got there. She ends up at a police station lost and confused when a man shows up. He's her father. Her name is Mary, or so he says. I started the year out reading this book, and unfortunately it was a bit of a dud. I gave it 2.75 stars. This wasn't amazing, but it was a quick read. Some of the things that happen in this book didn't really add up to me, and the way that certain characters were acting made no sense. So I ended up not really loving any of the characters, and the ending of this was unsatisfying. Like, I didn't like the way it turned out in the end, like the twist. So this book was just okay to me, but it was an easy read. That was the only mystery book I've read so far, so moving on to romance. The first romance book I'm going to be talking about is The Best Worst Thing. Nicole and her perfect husband Gabe have been dealing with a years-long struggle with infertility. But one day Nicole finds out that Gabe has been cheating on her. Suddenly, jobless, childless, and now husbandless, Nicole finds herself at the doorstep of someone she tried to say goodbye to a long time ago. Logan Milgram, a former colleague. I thought this was such a good book, and it's a debut. Like, this being your first book, crazy. I really like the main character, Nicole. Towards the end, she was making decisions that were kind of annoying, but I understand why she did them, and ultimately they were the best decisions she could have made at the time. I also liked Logan, our male main character. This book is marketed like a golden retriever type of boy kind of thing, and I thought I was going to be really annoyed by him. But he was just sweet. Like, this is how you do the golden retriever thing, but not get on my last nerve. So I really appreciated that, and I really liked his character as well. So I gave this book 4 stars. Again, this was a crazy debut, and this author is coming out with another book in the summertime, and I will be picking that up as well. The next romance book I read was Jane Eyre. I didn't really read this book to have like a take at the end of it. I kind of just read it as a challenge for myself. I don't read a ton of classics, so I just went out and read this one. There is a movie adaptation for this book that I really want to get to though at some point. The next romance book I read was Ribbon Wood. This story follows Laura and Ollie. These two used to hate each other, but now 15 years have passed and Ollie has decided to come back to her hometown because unfortunately her grandmother is passing away, and she's also been dealing with a lot of burnout from work. So she is back in her hometown and Laura never left, and they start to reconnect and realize that there is an attraction there. I loved Laura's character. She is the town pariah in this book. Everyone seems to have an issue with her, but not really for any real reason. They've all just made up their mind about her and keep her on the outs. So she's very guarded and very cagey. So when Ollie comes back to town, there is initially like a wall up, but Ollie slowly breaks down her walls. And Ollie just felt like the exact person that Laura needed. And I think they just complement each other really well. I wrote down that so much goes on in this book. There is a B plot that is set up at the very beginning and is woven into the story for the whole way through, and it comes back in a big way at the end. It's a crime investigation that ends up impacting a bunch of characters, which was really interesting. I did not expect this romance book to have that, but I really enjoyed the way that it was done. I have a physical copy of this book, and that's when you know I like something. I bought it. I gave this book 4 stars. It might even be a 4.5 stars. I really enjoyed my time reading this book. Another romance book I read was Summer Fridays. Sawyer and Nick are both in relationships, and they suspect that their partners are having an affair with each other. So initially they meet on Summer Fridays to talk about their partners, but then they keep hanging out with each other. They get to know each other, and then they fall in love. This was an enjoyable read. I gave this 3.75 stars. If you aren't someone that can deal with reading about infidelity in a book, this isn't the read for you. I wouldn't pick it up. It's like do 2 wrongs make a right. Like, their partners are cheating on each other, and they get together. I don't know. It's for you to decide. The last romance book here is Gloves Off. Alexei Volkov is a hockey player for the Vancouver Storm, and Georgia Green is a team doctor. They hate each other, but they enter a marriage of convenience because he needs citizenship. He knows that his hockey career is going to end soon and he wants to stay in Canada, and Georgia needs money to fund her recovery program for injured athletes, and the only way she can access her inheritance is to become married. Unfortunately, I gave this book 2 stars. I thought that this was so boring. I understand why people might like this book. There's like popular tropes and familiar story beats, but this book did nothing for me, like absolutely nothing. I was so bored from start to finish. And I did not like Alexei. I thought that he was just like so boring. Like, I there's like nothing I liked about that man. Nothing. Now moving on to fantasy, I only read one fantasy book. I read The Everlasting. Sir Una Everlasting was Dominion's greatest hero, a knight who died for queen and country. Centuries later, Owen Mallory, a failed soldier and a struggling scholar, falls in love with the tale of Una Everlasting. Her story takes him to war, to the archives, and then into the past itself. This is a fantasy book where Owen has to go back in time to rewrite the story of Una Everlasting, and he has to do this to change the outcome of the future, like his present day. Honestly, just really impressive, like the construction of it. I've never read any book like this, any fantasy book like this. It was also a very refreshing romantic dynamic. Una is like the knight. She is magnetic. She is the legend, and Owen is the struggling scholar, but they just go together really well. This is like a 3.75 stars, and I'll round it up to a 4 just because I thought the story was really impressive. Although towards the end, when they kept on going back into the future, it did get a little repetitive, and that's why I was like kind of annoyed with it. When he goes back in time, it's kind of like the same story, but he's tweaking it here and there to change the outcome. So by that nature, it's going to be repetitive. So I get it. But again, at a certain point, I was like, okay. Moving on to fiction, the first book I read was The Girls Who Grew Big. In this book, we follow a group of young moms as they navigate the miracle of motherhood and the paradox of girlhood. This book switches POVs with 3 girls, and each of them are dealing with a different set of struggles, but they are all connected. Every single girl in this book makes like the worst decisions, but you can't get mad at them because you understand that they have no support system set up at all. They are young girls who are pregnant, so of course the town hates them. Their parents have like disowned them, don't care about them, aren't providing for them. Even some of the fathers of the children are not great. So like, of course these girls are gonna make the worst decisions, and you can't get mad because obviously they would. Finances are a part of this book, racial dynamics are a part of this book, religion is a part of this book, access to women's healthcare comes into this book. Like, so many things are going on, and the 3 girls are a vessel to explain a wider issue. I gave this book 3.75 stars, and I think it's worth the read, but you will get angry at them, trust. The next fiction book I read was Beartown. Something happens to a young girl and it sends a small honky town into turmoil. I was also not ready for the subject matter in this book. For some reason, I knew that a crime had happened, but I thought it was something completely different. Like, I thought maybe somebody died, but that was just me like not knowing what was in this book. So I would check your trigger warnings. A lot of the people in the town are centered, and you get a lot of different opinions and viewpoints from everyone in the town. There is a Beartown show, and I might like that better, so I might try that out. I thought the book was good though. Next up, we have Half His Age. A girl named Waldo enters a relationship with her high school teacher. I gave this book 3 stars. Something about it was stopping me from like fully enjoying it. I think it was probably like the writing style. I wrote a lot of the descriptions in this book were nasty. Like, oh my gosh, that I did think was well done, and the author did that on purpose to make you feel sick at the situation, but it was like, ooh, it was nasty. The next fiction book is The Bright Years. Ryan and Lillian are deeply in love, recently married, and now they are parents to a baby girl named Georgette. Lillian has a son that she hasn't told Ryan about, and Ryan has an addiction that he hasn't told Lillian about. So Georgette comes of age watching their marriage rise and fall. This book spans years, so you really get to watch these characters go through a lot of different things. Also, something happens halfway-ish through this book that genuinely shocked me. I was like, oh, I didn't think that was an option. Overall, this was a good book. A lot of people cry while reading this book, so be prepared for some emotions. I gave this 3.75 stars. The next fiction book I read was The Great Alone. Ernst, Cora, and Lily Albright moved to the state of Alaska for a fresh start. Unfortunately, Ernst's mental state starts to deteriorate, and as time goes on, the family begins to fracture. This book is a journey. It's kind of like The Bright Years in that you start at one point and it just takes you on a bunch of different rides. I was on the edge of my seat at so many points in this book, and it was just like, it was an emotional roller coaster. It was literally, we're so back, we're so over. I gave this book 4 stars. Those were the books for the fiction category. Now moving on to nonfiction, I'm gonna keep this quick. The first nonfiction book I read was The Service Berry. It gives an indigenous perspective on the plant world. It talks about how our economy is based on scarcity, competition, and hoarding resources. And if we were focused more on community, having closer connection with where our food comes from, and being grateful for abundance, we would be living in a better society. Next nonfiction book I read was Everything is Tuberculosis. I learned a lot about tuberculosis. I didn't know anything about tuberculosis before reading this book. And obviously that's based on ignorance, but the area that I'm in, the people that I'm around, don't talk about tuberculosis ever. So I did not know that it was damaging a lot of people around the world. And then the last nonfiction book I read was Nothing Personal. This is an essay where James Baldwin shares his thoughts on social isolation, race, and police brutality. So all good, interesting reads. And since we're here, I'll share my DNFs too. The first DNF I have is The Raven Scholar. This was something that I really wanted to get to because I heard great things. I think I DNF'd it around the 40% mark though, because it just wasn't gripping me. Like I wasn't really invested in anything that was happening. And I've also seen on some reviews that people weren't completely satisfied with the ending. So I'm like, if I read 40% and I still didn't like it, and then the ending isn't what I want it to be, I don't know. I might get back to it, I might not. The next book I DNF'd was Project Hail Mary. Ooh. Everyone and their mother loves this book, and it was just not for me. What's funny is I like science fiction movies, but maybe it's just not something that works for me in book form. So I will be seeing this movie. I'm actually really excited to see the movie. I feel like I'm gonna enjoy the story a lot more in that format. This book I DNF'd was The Clockwork Prince. This series I've been meaning to get through for so long now. I finally picked up the second book and was like, I'm gonna finish this. And I just did not care. Again, if I don't care, I'm not reading it, girls. I'm done. I used to force myself to read the books, finish the books. I'm DNFing. I liked Will, Tessa, and Jim. I thought that they had an interesting dynamic and I liked them, but the plot was just not holding my attention. So DNF'd. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you found something new to read. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up. And if you want, you can subscribe, and I will see you in my next video.